they wear the ring and to basically get their biometric data so that they understand what's going on with their health. And so the kinds of data that you collect, I mean, obviously sleep is really at one of the key things that we do. One of the things that we did a study earlier this year that showed that Japan was literally the worst slept country in the world.
Maybe 5 or 10 years ago, the doctors were taking care of our health, and they had the data, and they told us what to do. So it's like having control. I think that's a very epoch-making, very innovative thing.
That are your metrics, that are accurate, that are clinical grade, that are measured overnight so you can see them, is what really will make an impact on health.
Hi everyone, welcome to Pivot Global. So today's guest is Tom Hale, CEO of Oura. So Tom, welcome to our show.
Oh, thank you, Ryan. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, so just the sake of an introduction for our audience, so Oura is a Finnish health technology company known for its ring, and it keeps track of your sleep, your health, temperature, and I have kind of a website to show to our audience. Can we call this like a smart ring?
Yeah, we prefer, people call it a smart ring. It's a health ring. It's a sleep tracker. It's a health tracker. But yeah, it's a ring that you wear that's a tiny computer.
And it says membership on the screen. It's a Japanese website. So is it a hardware or it's kind of a subscription model?
It's hardware with a subscription. You buy the ring, and the ring is relatively inexpensive. And then once you've bought the ring, you pay a monthly subscription for all the functionality that comes along with it. You get a mobile application, and we provide insights, and we give you advice and all these things that come along with the app. And so it's relatively inexpensive, probably no more than a cup of coffee or something like that.
So what do you mean by tracks your healthcare? Does it track your data, how you sleep? Could you give more context to it?
Yeah. So first of all, we have users around the globe, more than a million active users of the Oura ring. They're celebrities, they're athletes, what we call business athletes, they're startup CEOs, technology entrepreneurs, people who are trying to extend their life, biohackers. These are all the customers of the Oura ring. And they wear the ring and to basically get their biometric data so that they understand what's going on with their health. And so the kinds of data that you collect, I mean, obviously sleep is really at one of the key things that we do, but the advantage of tracking your sleep is that you know how to get quality sleep, not just the quantity of sleep. And of course, as you know, in Japan, there's a sleep epidemic. 37% of men and 40% of women get less than 6 hours of sleep a night on average. By the way, what you should be getting is 8 hours. So you have a crisis of sleep deprivation in Japan. I mean, I'm sure you've seen, there's people falling asleep in classes, night watchmen asleep at their job, people asleep on the trains. It's a crisis of sleeplessness.
Yeah, even politicians during their debate and diet, they're like this, and in commuter trains, a lot of business persons are like, sleeping inside trains, which is not good.
Actually, it's funny. We see this because, of course, we have anonymized data of all the customers. And one of the things that we did a study earlier this year that showed that Japan was literally the worst slept country in the world.
Right. I'm quite interested in sleep because there are tons of studies that show that, good sleep leads to productivity, mental health. And I've tried a lot of things. I tried to buy expensive pillows. Sometimes I drink sake, which is not good for your health.
Alcohol's terrible for your sleep. Terrible for your sleep.
So how can, every Japanese business person has this problem. How does Oura Ring help your sleep?
So the first thing, of course, is that you want to do things that are going to improve just the quantity of sleep. So, things like going to bed at a regular time or, trying to manage your life. These are all the basic things that you would try and do. And I think it's hard to do. And I think, that there's some real pressure on that. But the really interesting thing is the quality of your sleep. right? And you mentioned it. So if you drink a lot of caffeine during the day, the quality of your sleep and your ability to stay asleep is actually reduced. Caffeine has a long life inside of your body. People say it's 8 hours, but actually, people will feel the impacts of caffeine for longer than 8 hours. There's also the effects of alcohol. If you drink, sake, it really will mess with your REM sleep, your REM sleep, which is when your brain is doing its most interesting work during the night of processing information. It's actually during REM they think that you're learning new skills, or that you're taking your memories from short-term memory into long-term memory and processing those memories. Alcohol plays havoc with your REM sleep. Things like, they're very simple things that you can do. So, for example, if you sleep in a cool room, when you go through your sleep cycle, as you start to enter sleep, your body actually gets cooler. And so heat can be very disruptive for you. If you're sleeping in a warm room, it'll actually keep your body's temperature slightly elevated, which will reduce the effectiveness and the quality of the sleep. If you eat a late meal or have a late workout, your heart and body are in this kind of mode of digesting. You're giving energy over to digesting the food that you ate right before you went to bed. So if you have a big meal before you go to bed, the quality of your deep sleep will be reduced. What you're really looking for is, does your heart lower its heart rate, over the night, your heart rate dips? Does it lower early in the night? The earlier in the night that it lowers, the more your body is giving, energy over to rest and recovery. So those are some very basic things that you can do. But what Oura does is it gives you visibility to say, like, what kind of night's sleep did you have? Was it good? Was it great? Was it terrible? Was it okay? And then you can start to say, well, what behaviors, whether it's taking a supplement like magnesium, or sleeping in a cool room, or using a weighted blanket, you can start to see the impact of those behaviors on your sleep, on your scores. And then that becomes a way of reinforcing what really works for you.
So, Tom, how did your sleep change after you found using Oura? Because, you're a CEO of a tech company, and here in Japan, we hear like business stories of, CEOs of tech companies being very busy. Elon Musk, he sleeps in factories. I don't know, but how's your sleep going on?
Well, it's interesting. It's actually how I came to the company. It was the fall of 2021, and I was not sleeping well. I had some real stress in my professional life and in my family life. It was a really tough time. And honestly, I started looking around for solutions, and I bumped into the Oura Ring, and started doing some very basic things. Some of the things we've already talked about. I was somebody who would drink coffee in the morning and then drink alcohol at night to try and take the edge off. So it was kind of this curve. I would stay up late. I'd stare at my phone before I go to bed. I'd watch Netflix until all hours. And so I started working on it. And the truth is that having numbers, having metrics to understand how I was doing, made all of the behavior change that I was making just that much more visible. I mean, I knew that I was sleeping better, but I didn't know exactly what was working and what wasn't working. So I made some basic changes in my life. And the reality is that I felt like I went from black and white television to Technicolor 70 millimeter movie. It was, I think I have been sleep deprived most of my adult life since I had kids. Trying to balance between my job, which is demanding, and my kids. And so it was amazing. And I felt my mood was better, my energy was better, my cognition was better, my memory was better. And I said, this is amazing. This is an amazing product. I need to like be involved in this company. And it turns out they were doing a CEO search. And so I wrote them a letter and I said, you need to consider me. And they said, no, we want somebody from Nike or some, kind of consumer. I was like, no, I'm a software person. This is a software. And they finally, gave me a chance to try out for the job, and I got it. So that's how I ended up at the company.
So any advice for our viewers? So what time do you go to bed? Any tips, advice?
It's funny. I used to be somebody who would go to bed late, like midnight, and I would wake up pretty early, but like, between 6 and 7. And now what's interesting is that I feel really sleepy by 10, and I'm usually in bed by 10:30, but I'm usually up at 5 without an alarm. And it's pretty interesting just having a really consistent time. Your body and your brain work on something called the circadian rhythm, which is the cycle of light and dark. and your photoreceptors in your eyes, they send a signal to your brain saying, oh, it's getting dark, and your brain releases melatonin, and that causes you to it's like the starting gun at the beginning of the race to fall asleep. And if you miss that window, you might have real difficulties falling asleep. So for me, I always nail that 10:30, and I'm in bed asleep. I get 2 hours of deep sleep and 2 hours of REM sleep. Wake up at 5 a.m. the next morning, feel great, and I don't need an alarm. It's been a really eye-opening experience for me. I think many people in Japan could learn from that example.
Yes, definitely. Yes. Do you exercise, or like you don't bring your phone to your bedroom? What other advice tips?
So yeah, I mean, I try not to eat too late. Actually, that turned out to be a really interesting thing, because your body's digestion is takes a lot of energy and a lot of focus from your body to digest. And in fact, that energy could be better spent during sleep, repairing your muscles. I tend to work out sort of 2 or 3 times a week. And actually on one of the things that I learned is on the days that I work out, I sleep better. I try and work out in the mornings as opposed to in the evenings, because I found working out in the evening made it harder for me. Your body's all excited and agitated, so it made it harder for me to fall asleep. And then I think the other thing that's really compelling to me is that screens and the light from the screen, it's effectively the kind of light that signals to your brain that it's actually time to be awake, not time to be asleep. And so if you're staring at your screen before you go to bed, like that is, you can improve your sleep just by not doing that. The other thing that I learned, and I know there's a great tradition of this in Japan, but like sort of meditated breathing.
Yeah.
You do that for 5 or 10 minutes before you go to sleep, and you'll find that you'll have more restful sleep.
Thanks. I'll definitely try it tonight before I go to sleep.
Give it a shot. And you know what? When you look at the scores on your Oura ring, and you'll see if your sleep scores are getting better, or that you're getting more deep sleep or more REM sleep.
Yeah. So I'll stop drinking my coffee and no sake before going to sleep. Okay.
Absolutely. Alcohol's a killer.
So you said you took your job because you love the product, and you used to work for Linden Lab. You were the chief product officer, which was famous for Second Life.
That's right.
Yeah, the metaverse, like 1.0 or something. And after that, you went to Adobe. And so after joining Oura, so what's your vision? What you want to accomplish as a CEO?
It's really interesting. The company is quite successful from the perspective of customers. And it's really built on this foundation of sleep. And part of that is because, as a thing that you wear to bed, a ring is very comfortable, right? It's very light. The product has a really long battery life, so you don't have to charge it. It doesn't have any lights or beeps or vibrations, so it's not going to interrupt your sleep at all. It's very, on track. But as I came to the company, one of the things that I think is the ambition of the company is to move much more into the daytime, and to help you understand not just how you're sleeping, but how the rest of your 24 hours of life are going. We open up this door to the 8 hours that you're asleep, but there's this a whole other dimension. And one of the metrics that's really interesting is something called heart rate variability. So our tracking of heart rate variability is very, very accurate. Heart rate variability is a metric that is really indicative of how recovered you are or how stressed you are. So one of the things that we've been doing, and this has been exciting for us as a company, is as we push into the day, we start thinking about different ways that we can affect people's health. And so stress is certainly one way. We just launched a whole feature that gives you visibility into your stress levels, every 15 minutes. And so you can start to learn what during the day you can do to remove stress, or what during the day stresses you. Is stressful, is it stressful to have a meeting with your boss? Is it stressful to go on a date? Is it stressful to do, for me, I actually learned that going to parties, which I enjoy, turns out really stressful for me. I was actually, I was the host of a party recently, and I saw that my stress levels were peaked the whole time. So extending into the daytime, there are other places that we extend into. Women's health is an adjacency that we're making lots of strides on. One of the reasons why is because we track temperature, and temperature for a woman over the course of your menstrual cycle moves up and down in a really predictable way. And so that allows us to do things like tell women, hey, listen, this is when you're going to get your period, or be able to say, this is a good time to get pregnant, or this is a time when you're definitely not going to get pregnant. And by the way, this is how you might be feeling, and here's how your physiology might be affected. Oh, by the way, if you're getting pregnant, here's how. And this kind of ability to kind of give women a voice to their body and to help them understand what's going on with their body based on their cycle, because we don't change that much over the course of a month, but every month a woman's body goes through a set of changes as the hormones are released into her body. So women's health is an area that's really interesting for us. And so as a CEO, I've been thinking about how do we find, if sleep is our foundation, how do we find heart health? How do we find reproductive health? How do we find mental health? How do we help people understand how to reduce stress in their life? So the vision for the company is to build that platform of health experiences that go beyond sleep. And I think that's really where I hope to take the company.
Interesting. Do you think that would change how people think about health? Because, in Japan and the United States, we have different healthcare systems. I think we have similar problems because in the United States, healthcare is kind of one of the financial concerns of people. Medications, you have to pay bills. And also in Japan, because it's an aging society, a lot of tax monies are going to the elderlies, which is good, but it's a concern for the young generation. So instead of just taking a bunch of medication, if people start to have good sleep, do you think that will kind of change the whole system, the society, and how we think about health?
Well, I think it's bigger than just sleep. Our vision is that health shouldn't be something that's really what we would call sick care, which is that the healthcare system is there really to intervene when it's too late, when you're already sick. When you're already, a lot of illnesses are really the result of age. If you think about it, sleep is actually implicated in what are some of the most devastating, illnesses that you can get. And if you can improve your sleep, you can reduce the impact of those illnesses. And so those include things like heart health. The American Heart Association cites sleep as one of the life's essential 8 that give you good cardiovascular health. So sleep and heart health. Sleep is linked to type 2 diabetes. Type 2 diabetes occurs when your body is no longer it's insulin resistant, and so as a result you gain weight, you become less healthy. Your kidneys and your liver become less healthy, and type 2 diabetes is a huge issue in the United States. Maybe less of an issue in Japan, but still an issue. And then you think about the cognitive benefits, so Alzheimer's. Parkinson's disease. These are diseases that afflict people in their older years. And it turns out sleep quality and sleep duration are hugely correlated with them. That goes along with, I think, all the benefits that sleep has, for your immunity. Sleep has for helping you control your appetite. Sleep has for your cognition, for your memory. All these things are factors. Now, the really interesting thing, of course, is that sleep is this foundation of health, but there are lots of other healthy habits that would prolong your life. But the key is that if we can help you make healthy habits and healthy choices before you get sick, then the burden of getting sick might not fall, as heavily upon the shoulders of those who have to pay for it. It goes along with this idea that people should take charge of their health. That's the other really interesting idea. In the last 20 years, the internet, information on websites, social media has educated people about their health in a way that they really, that wasn't available to them before. Now we're giving them the information about what's actually going on with their physiology, so they can understand, the behavioral choices that make an impact. Because if you look at all the things that could go wrong in your life, all the things that could cause you to get sick or ill, maybe 20% of those are, genetic factors. Maybe 20% of those are going to be factors that relate to your environment. What kind of part of the world you grow up in. 60% of them are related to behavior, and we can change behavior. You can decide to exercise. You can decide to eat healthier. You can decide to get more sleep. And if you change that behavior, we think metrics of your body that are your metrics, that are accurate, that are clinical grade, that are measured overnight so you can see them over time and compare them one to another. Those metrics are the things that are going to change your behaviors. And that behavior change is what really will make an impact on health.
I like what you said about taking control of your health, because, maybe 5 or 10 years ago, the doctors were taking control of our health, and they had the data, and they told us what to do. So it's having control, I think that's a very epoch-making, very innovative thing. Yeah,
it's very powerful. I think that, again, if you start to really learn about your body and you start to gain an understanding of what normal is for you, because it's not the same for everybody. What might be normal for you, you're a younger man, or it might be very different from an older woman, or from someone like me. Like, we might have very different health statuses. And by the way, our health is changing all the time. One of the classic things that people do with Oura is it because your temperature and your respiration and your heart rate variability and your heart rate are oftentimes indicators of you getting sick. The application will sort of say, hey, listen, it looks like you might be getting sick. Do you want to take it easy? Do you want to go into rest mode? And this is this was during COVID, actually, one of the things that really put Oura on the map was that people would learn that they were getting sick a couple of days before they had any symptoms. So while they were still, feeling healthy, they were actually infectious. So having something on your body that knows what normal is for you, right? Because we're tracking you every night, and every night you're sort of in the same place. It's a good controlled environment to understand your temperature, to understand your respiration, understand your heart rate variability. Then we can see the deviation. And when you have a deviation, we're like, hey, something's going well. You're doing a good job. Or something's not doing well. You're getting sick. You might want to change your behavior. Take a break. Take a rest.
So I'm in a startup community, and when I think about health, a lot of CEOs are doing challenging activities. They work out, a bunch of push-ups, gain we have weight. Compared to that, I think Oura is more relaxing, more calm. Do you think Oura Ring is kind of changing the concept of healthcare? How about in the United States? Because
there's a lot of startup founders who wear Oura rings, and it's no surprise because it's a very stressful job. And I think working out, lifting weights or running or whatever, it's great for your mental health, right? It sort of takes you into your body, it expends energy. Maybe you're going to be less anxious or whatever. But the most important thing that you can do when you're working out is make sure you recover. And I think there's actually a tendency for people sometimes to overtrain or over-exercise. And what you really want to see is am I training the right amount? Am I stressing my body the right amount? And am I recovering the right amount? And the thing is that stress could be workout, or it could be work, right? It could be the things that you're doing in your job. And so I think one of the things that Oura gives you, and I think maybe this is what you were referring to, is it gives you permission based on your physiology to take it easy. It's not you being like, oh, I don't feel great. I'm phoning in sick. It's like, no, actually, I looked at my scores and my data says I need to take a break. And the thing is that the truth is that if you are constantly burning, the midnight oil, as they say, you're working, whatever, you're sleeping on the factory floor like Elon Musk, you can sustain that for a little while, but you can't sustain that over the long term. And anybody who's running a startup knows that it's not about this week or next week. It's about having a strategy and building a company over time. And so having this stress and recovery is what builds resilience. And resilience is what a startup founder or anybody who's running a business needs.
So that leads to my next question about the startup culture in the United States, because Elon Musk's biography by Walter Isaacson, the Japanese version was just released and everyone's reading it. And I live in a startup community, so people are thinking to themselves that we should try hard, and it's an important thing. But has the startup culture in the United States changed? Do you think people are more concerning about their mental health, being relaxed, having good sleep? How do you see, what are you witnessing in the startup community right now?
I think, honestly, mental health, not just in the startup community, I think in the world. I think COVID kind of put so much awareness and shined such a bright light on mental health and on stress and on basically everybody had a health crisis. Even most people don't experience a health crisis until they're older, but young people they had a health crisis. They realized that their health is fragile. I think that has really changed the way people think about health. People, the awareness of wellness as an activity, as something to pursue that's good for you, has really changed, I think, attitudes about how people work. And to your point, I think the startup community in the U.S., we talked to a lot of startup founders. One is the founder of Brex, which is a credit card that a lot of companies use to manage their expenses. And he very famously, went on the record talking about his own stress and his own sense of anxiety, and how actually the Oura Ring really helped him, because turns out that if you're getting good sleep, and it turns out if you're really, giving yourself a break, that's the key to being effective at your job. And for him, it was an unlock, of the first order that made him a great CEO. So I think you can really make the case that, one, people are more conscious of mental health now, and maybe more open about it. Like they're more, willing to accept it, and they understand that just work without any kind of rest or recovery in between is actually going to make them less effective, not more effective.
Interesting you mentioned that they're more open to it, because, maybe there's a stereotypical image that if you say about mental health, you seem to be like a weak person, you're not trying hard enough. So that's changing?
I think it is changing. Yes, I think people are. I think it's a generational thing. I think younger kids today, they grew up with maybe more access to information that would suggest that mental health is not some thing that doesn't happen to everybody. Everybody has a crisis.
Right.
I think there's been major athletes, Naomi, Osaka, or even Serena Williams, like Michael Phelps. They brought forth this idea that if you're going to perform, the ways you need to perform, sure, you need, your fitness to be high, and you need your energy to be high, you need your mental game. But you know what? You recognize that if your mental health is not there, you're not, no matter how fit you are, you're not going to succeed. So people have really, I think, they've come to be much more open and much more accepting about the idea that your mental health is part of how you optimize your life.
So my final question is about Japan. How do you think about, what do you think about the Japanese market in terms of how can you expand Oura Ring, and how can you change how Japanese people sleep?
Well, it's really interesting, because in Japan, there's a great love of Finnish culture, Finnish design, Finnish, there's an ethos about the beauty of nature and the importance of being in nature. You think about the sort of tradition of forest bathing in Japan. There's something very similar in Finland. So there's a really interesting cultural fit. The product itself is sort of a Finnish product that has this elegance and beauty to it. It's very refined and very spare and minimalistic. So I think that in Japan, sleep obviously is a home run. If we can improve the quality and awareness of sleep in Japan, I think that will have a great impact on both Japanese society and also on Japanese businesses and Japanese productivity. I think on top of that, I think there's a real opportunity to help people understand how they can take control of their own health and how they can take control of their own wellness. So lots of opportunities. And of course, in Japan, I think there's a great tradition of consumer electronics being, personal, being part of your life.
Right.
And really, this is a consumer electronic that you wear 24/7. You wear it all the time. It works with your smartphone, which you always have with you. I think it's a great fit for Japan.
So I enjoyed using Second Life. I love that product, and I also love Adobe. And I understand you're kind of a software guy, but isn't hardware very hard? What's the challenge of creating hardware?
We have a great team. Obviously, a lot of people who work at Oura came out of the tradition of Nokia. And Nokia was a great consumer electronics company, and still is, but in many ways sort of brought cellular phones to the masses in the late 90s. So there's a real culture of both understanding consumer behavior and ability to make very, very good, very high quality electronics. So it is really interesting to see how that kind of DNA of consumer electronics and hardware, it makes what is, I think, a challenging thing, which is to make something this small, that has a 7-day battery life, that basically has, a bunch of sensors and a microprocessor and storage, and has to manage its battery so that it gives you all the signals and interacts with your body to understand what's going on in your body. It's a very complicated and challenging thing to do. But these guys, our team in Finland, they are unbelievable, and they've been drawing on this tradition of consumer electronics, but also health, because Finland's been a big leader in thinking through, health and wellness, and have been on the leading edge of that. So hardware is hard, but the Oura Ring is a technological masterpiece, something really to check out.
Okay, great. Thank you, Tom, for your time. And I really enjoyed the conversation, and I'll definitely follow your advice. Stop drinking coffee, turn off my phone, and try to wake up at 5 a.m. without my alarm tomorrow morning.
I hope so, Ryan. And if there's anything we can do to help you sleep better, we're absolutely on tap to help you do it.
Okay, thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Take care. Cheers.